Hey everybody, good morning. Welcome back to Blu-Roy Movies. Welcome to Sunday and welcome to the weekly watches. Gosh, these weeks soon fly round again. Before we start talking about the films this week though, I'm just going to do a little shameless plug. Next Saturday night, the 22nd, I believe, 7 p.m. UK time, I shall be appearing on Jim's movie channel, his bi-weekly show, Shooting the Shit with Jim. It's just a informal chat. It lasts for a couple of hours. Jim will have a guest on every couple of weeks and just generally have a chat, ask him a few questions, have a bit of a laugh and all that. And yeah, it's quite good fun. So if maybe one or two of you could come over and give me a bit of support, I'd very much appreciate it. I know I don't do streams and stuff very often. It's a bit out of my comfort zone, so yeah, I'd appreciate a bit of support, a few friendly faces. Well, names really. I don't know quite a few of the faces, but I know the names, of course. I would very much appreciate it. That's next Saturday, 22nd, 7 p.m. Yeah, Jim's a good host. He's got a good interviewing skill, and I'm actually a returning guest. I've been on it before. It's a bit like, I suppose, when Graham Norton has a returning guest, one of his favourites back. That's what I'm a bit like, I suppose. Or Michael Parkinson in the 70s did have returning guests. I suppose I'm Jim's Michael Caine, and not a lot of people know that. So yeah, next Saturday, 22nd, 7 p.m. Be there or be square. So right, let's roll the credits and we'll talk about some films. Obviously, I'll put Jim's details down below. Go and click on Jim, give him a subscribe. He's a great chap, he's a funny bloke, and yeah, he makes me laugh, so that's a good thing. Right, film time. We've kicked off the week with A Time to Love and A Time to Die. God, that's a mouthful of a title, isn't it? This is from 1958, directed by a director I'm starting to explore more of his work, and that is Douglas Sirk. This stars John Gavin and Liselotte Pulver, and yeah, I quite enjoyed this. It's Sirk, so if you know Sirk, you know what you're getting into. He's a very melodramatic director, which shouldn't work for me, but it does somehow. It all comes together. This is a World War II set film, and the Germans, they are fast on the retreat from the Russian front. They're losing the war, and all the soldiers know it, but apart from the officers aren't having it, and they're indoctrinating them that they're still like winning the war, and it's quite obvious that they're on the retreat and getting overrun. This are mainly John Gavin. He's a soldier on the front line, and he's awaiting what they call furlough, like leave from the army. And I've never heard of that word before. Before the pandemic, where it became a very much in vogue word, didn't it? Furlough, and I'd never heard of it then, and now it just seems to crop up all the time. Anyway, John Gavin's furlough comes through. He gets 21 days where he can go away from the Russian front and back home. And when he gets to his home, he finds that the house that he lives in with his mum and dad is all bombed out, and the whole street's bombed out. And God, the place is absolutely devastated. I know the Luftwaffe did some damage over here during the Blitz, and not just London, other towns and cities. Coventry, close to me, suffered very, very badly. But we certainly paid them back in spades, and God, two rights don't make a wrong and all that, and you see like the state of this German town and people missing their relatives and trying to find the relatives, and you just what devastation and a waste of life on both sides of the conflict. I mean, the Germans were people like us at the end of the day. But yeah, I'm getting away from the main topic. This guy returns home and his family home is bombed out, and he's not sure if his parents are alive at all. So he sets upon trying out to find them, and this leads him to the house of the family doctor, where he wants to inquire, see if the doctor's heard anything about them, whether they're still alive or not. And the daughter of the doctor opens the door and they have a conversation, and it transpires that the doctor has been taken into an internment camp just for maybe mentioning and being overheard to mention that he feared that Germany was going to lose the war, and for this he got interned. Then this relationship between the two characters, the doctor's daughter and this German, so they start seeing bits of each other, and the relationship starts to form. But they've only got this short furlough period to get to know each other and decide which way their future together is going to go before this guy has to go back to the slaughter grounds of the Russian front line. Yeah, very good. Quite enjoyed it. Like I say, it's Cirque, and you know what you're getting into with Cirque. But yeah, decent watch. This was a Masters of Cinema DVD. Actually, you can see it here. Most people know that I've got a big Masters of Cinema Blu-ray collection, but I don't actually have this on Blu-ray. I would like it, but God, it's heavily out of print, and it's a 40 or 50 quid Blu-ray. So I had to make do with the DVD copy. Yeah, but very, very good. A Time to Love and A Time to Die. If you like Cirque, you know what you're getting into with Cirque, and you haven't seen this one, thoroughly recommend that you maybe grab a DVD copy, because it's not, I think I paid about 4 or 5 quid a few months ago for this, so it's not overpriced, and it's a decent watch. Next up, Paris, Texas, from 1984, directed by Wim Wenders. Now, this stars the late, great Harry Dean Stanton, Natasha Kinski. I've always said Natasha, but writing my details down for this, there's an S in front of the T, so I suppose it's Nastasia Kinski. I've got it wrong all these years. And Dean Stockwell. Now, I know, and I did enjoy this film, and I know it's a favourite of a lot of people. It's Steve for films, it's one of his favourite films of all time before, and whilst I did enjoy watching it, and I gave it 4 stars on Letterboxd, so you can tell I hold it in quite high regard. Would I go back to it anytime soon? I don't think I would. Would I ever watch it again? Maybe not, I don't know. It's centred around Harry Dean Stanton's character, and after a breakup with his wife or girlfriend, I can't remember, partner anyway, he has gone missing into the desert, Arizona, I think, somewhere out west anyway, the scenes that you see on all the westerns, and he left his baby son, daughter, oh God, I've only watched it the other day, I can't remember if it's a boy or a girl. He left his infant child with his brother and his wife and just disappeared, and his wife did too. And then he suddenly wanders out the desert and is picked up and admitted to hospital. So his brother goes to discover him at the hospital and find out what's happened to him, and finds that he is not talking. That is something I couldn't get off. I didn't sit right with. 1 minute, Harry Dean Stanton's character won't talk at all, but a few minutes later is singing like a canary and he won't shut up. I think that changeover there didn't quite sit perfectly for me. And it's all the story of how this happened, and then he finds out when he's sort of like back into society where his ex-partner where she's living now, and that she drops off money in this local bank every week for the child. So he hatches a plan to take the child and go over to this bank and try and find this woman played by Natasha Kinski and rekindle their relationship. Yeah, it was all right. It was okay. It's fantastically acted and beautifully, beautifully shot. You imagine some of the Western scenarios. You like your Westerns, you know how lovely they look, and this is the same. It looks absolutely gorgeous. The cinematography is fantastic. I mean, I've only got the Blu-ray copy, and I think it was released on 4K recently, and this was pristine. So I could only imagine how good that 4K look. If Steve, if you've got a copy and you've seen it, let me know in the comments. But yeah, it's all right, like I say, but just not one that I'd return to very often. It was quite slow and pondering, very slow pace. Let's put it that way. Yeah, Paris, Texas. I'm glad I gave it a watch. Put it that way. Next up was a rewatch of Stage Fright from 1950, directed by Alfred Hitchcock. This stars Jane Wyman, Marlene Dietrich, Michael Wilding, Richard Todd, Alistair Sims in here as one of the characters' fathers, bringing a bit of comic relief. And whilst this is not top tier Hitchcock, it's a very, very good watch. Excuse me. Richard Todd is having an affair with married woman Marlene Dietrich, and Richard Todd you may know from the Dam Busters. He played the leader of the 661 Squadron. I know Alan's going to be telling me in the comments. Yeah, he played Guy Gibson in that film. And yeah, he's having this affair with Marlene Dietrich, and she appears at his house one day. A dress is covered in blood, and she has had a heated argument with her husband over Richard Todd because the husband's found out, and she's basically murdered him. Richard Todd offers to go back and fetch Marlene Dietrich a new dress from the crime scene so that she can dress and get changed, because she is a singer and she's just on her way over to another concert that she's about to perform, and obviously can't go in this bloodstained dress. So yeah, Richard Todd goes over there to get her a new dress, and whilst he's there, he's disturbed by the cleaner, the maid of Marlene Dietrich, and she fingers him for then the murder of the husband that he didn't do. It's a very familiar trope with Hitchcock. He did it time and time and again, but he did it very, very well. So it's all about him then, with the aid of his friend, played by Jane Wyman. Now you can see that Jane Wyman, they go under the guise of friends, but you can tell that she's got this flame for Richard Todd, and she tries to help and tries to keep him out of trouble. Yeah, it's good, twisty, turny crime whodunit thriller with some good set pieces. There's a good set piece with a kid with a little doll with the blood smeared on it, and with Dietrich singing, because without trying to spoil it too much, things aren't quite as Dietrich puts it. We only know she's a bit of a unreliable narrator at the start of the film. She's telling the story of how the husband died in this flashback sequence. We only have her word of what's gone on and how the murder happened. Yeah, so then it all comes unravelled, and there's a good twist at the end, and yeah, good stuff. Like I say, not Hitchcock's best film at all, but mid Hitchcock is still a hell of a lot better than most directors could do. Yeah, Stage Fright, definitely one to watch. Next up is Red Joan from 2018, directed by Trevor Nunn. Now this stars Judi Dench. I don't like Judi Dench. Sophie Cookson and Tom Hughes. I think I saw this on Jodie's Movies Round channel. I think when she'd done a pickups video, she'd picked up a few sort of like Cold War films. I think that's one of her interests, and this was one of them she mentioned and made it sound interesting. And the Blu-ray was actually quite cheap, so I grabbed a copy. Yeah, Red Joan. this is all about Judi Dench. She's this little old lady, and all of a sudden, like, the old Bill descend upon her doorstep in droves and arrest her for breaches of the Official Secrets Act, much to the malignment of her family, in particular her son, who was this very high-flying barrister and just incredulous at these charges that were laid against his mum. And this is based on a true story. He said there's no chance my mum's involved in that. But anyway, they take her in for questioning, and yeah, lo and behold, she was involved in that. It's shot through the eyes of her younger self, played very, very well by Sophie Cookson, who I can't remember seeing in anything else, actually. A new face to me, anyway. And it started off when she was at university in the 30s and the start of the Nazi uprising and all that. And she gets in with a group of friends and Russian friends, and they're like communists and all that. And I think she saw it as sort of exciting, and there's a boy involved. There's usually a boy involved. She looks upon it exciting and something away from the humdrum aspects of life. So it was a bit of a passing phase at the time. She'd hand out leaflets and stuff, that communism leaflets. And you know how young and impressionable people are at that age. They want to change the world, don't they? But she matures, and then during the war, she gets a job working for the secret services, and they are working on the splitting of the atom and the construction of the atom bomb. And she is a very, very bright young woman, physician, and ahead of her field, and one of the top people in the country. This is how she got. First, she got the job as being like somebody's the secretary, but as her skills and her knowledge came through, like, they leaned on her more and more. Anyway, she gets back in touch years later with this bloke that she fell in love with during university. It was Cambridge or Oxford, one of the two big hitters. And he persuades her to give them the findings of what they've done so far and pass it on to the Russians. Now, Joan looked upon it as it wasn't fair that one side had all this information, and her argument was that if she passed it on to the Russians, then both sides would have the capability, and neither side would have sort of like the gall or the nous or the bottle to use it against each other and form this Cold War as it did. And that didn't quite sit right with me. I thought this woman is the best in her field, one of the leading physicists in the country, and she'd be more savvy than that. They painted her as being a very naive character, which I didn't go with that. She's such an intelligent woman to get this job and work out all these equations and that she must surely be able to see through that. I suppose affairs of the heart come into it as well. But yeah, it was all right. It was a decent watch, and maybe a few years I'll probably stick it on again. So yeah, good recommendation from Jodie. Red Joan. Yeah, it was all right, that one. Next up, we have Happy Go Lucky. Now, this is from 2008, directed by Mike Leigh, who I haven't seen much of, but I've liked everything I've seen so far. I've seen this, Life is Sweet, Vera Drake, and that's it. I've got Naked and Peterloo to watch. Yeah, this stars Sally Hawkins and Eddie Marsan, and this was quite good. I really enjoyed it. For what I always consider silly throwaway films, it was quite good. I can imagine Ash at Popcorn and Horror maybe getting a lot out of this. Yeah, Sally Hawkins, she's this primary school teacher, and what a job that must be. Girl playing sandpit kids and will go home at 3. I'm sure there's more to it than that for getting hate off teachers. Anyway, she's this very outgoing, always looking on the bright side of life character, much to the annoyance of the a lot of the people around her a lot of the time, because she's very, very, very over the top with it. And if she stood in a dog turd, she'd see the silver line on it. She's that sort of woman. But I found her quite endearing and quite good to. I mean, she's a great actress. She's Sally Hawkins. She certainly pulled it off. And it's a film. It's more of a mood piece. There's not a lot of plot to it, to be honest. It's just how her travail through her day-to-day life and what she's going through at the time. And she's learning to drive. And her driving instructor is Eddie Marsan. Now, he is the complete opposite of the character played by her. He is an uptight, angry little git, but watching them together, like, she is annoying the hell out of him, and he's really trying to hold it back. Well, he doesn't try and hold it back a lot of times. He just comes out with the most heinous things that no driving instruction should ever come out with to his pupils. But I do think through it all, he's got a bit of a soft spot for her, a bit of a like for her, a bit of a holding a bit of a flame for her, because she starts seeing this guy who comes to a primary school because one of the kids is maybe in trouble at home or something. So the bloke from social services, this fellow comes and they strike up a friendship immediately, and he takes her on a date. And after their first date, spoiler alert, she comes out with him the next morning, and she's picked up by Eddie Marsan and watches her having a snog on the doorstep with him, and it really riled him. It sent him over the top, and she then has the most angriest, scariest driving lesson you've ever seen in your life, which an absolutely joy to watch. And probably it is the standout scene for me in the whole film. It was absolutely amazing. Yeah, happy-go-lucky, very, very good, and just made me want to watch more Mike Leigh stuff, because, like I say, everything I've watched so far has been very good. Yeah, good one, that. So I picked this one up ages ago on, I think, Ollie's recommendation, and finally got around to watch it. I saw it on the shelf and forgotten all about it, to be honest. Amazing Grace, 2006, directed by Michael Apted, starring Ian. I'm going to go for Ian Crawford. See that name there? It's not very good camera work. Ian, I'm presuming it's like a Celtic name of spelling Ian. The Celts have some daft names of spelling names. No offence, Celts. Romola Garay, Benedict Cumberbatch, Albert Finney, Michael Gambon, Rufus Sewell, Kieran Hines, Jeremy Swift. Really stacked cast. And it's all about Grefford's character. He is playing William Wilberforce, who wrote the song Amazing Grace, hence the title of the film. But he was also a politician serving in the government of William Pitt. I think they used to call him William Pitt the Younger. I've heard that name's bandied about. And he was played really well by quite a young Benedict Cumberbatch at the time. And Wilberforce made it his life's work to get the abolition of slavery in Britain abolished, and despite being turned down countless times every year, he'd try and pass the bill through Parliament, but he was smashing his head against a brick wall because half the members of the House of Lords at the time had some involvement with the slave trade, and it was big business in Britain at the time. There was a lot of the Britain's economy was reliant on the slave trade, so he was like fighting a losing battle from the start, despite like taking people to have a look round these slave ships and see the horrendous conditions inside. Like, they were made to lay in boxes like the size of a coffin was the size of their berth, to make this trip from Africa over to the New World, America or the West Indies. And the stench, they reckon the stench of human mess and the stench of death was something once you smell, you never forget it, which I could only imagine looking at. I've never smelled anything like that, and pray to God I never do. So yeah, really brutal and hard watching at times. The manacles set up where the ship's company would manacle up the women and do absolutely the most heinous things you can imagine to. So yeah, all about this journey of this guy up against it, trying to get this build pass through. Yeah, a decent watch. It had its slow parts, I must admit. Some parts I did struggle a bit, but overall it wasn't a bad watch at all. So yeah, not a bad recommendation from Ollie. Yeah, it was alright, that one. Next up, and one I'm very late to the party with, I'm sure most people have seen this by now, from last year 2025, directed by Josh Safdie. You've got Timothy Chalamet, Gwyneth Paltrow. Who else was in this? Odessa Razan, Kevin O'Leary, Tyler the Creator. Abel Ferreira, he's got a bit part. Abel Ferreira is very good at this. I thought it was very good. It's 150 minutes long, but it's such a frantic film that it just zipped by like that for me. Yeah, extremely well paced about this guy played by Chalamet, and that is the one thing against the film, and I know that that's the whole idea, that he was such an arsehole, he's such a dickhead and an unlikable character that it's difficult to get behind him. You couldn't do it at all. He plays this table tennis star in, I think it was the 50s, and it's when table tennis is this up and coming sport and not many people had heard of it, but it's between Chalamet and this Japanese guy who's the best in the world, and Chalamet has got to get to Japan to play the world champion, or I think he was the British champion. This Japanese guy had won the last competition, he'd beaten Chalamet in the final, so he wants to get revenge, he wants to get over to Japan to play him, and it seems every obstacle is put in his way to try and get enough money for his plane ticket over there, and whatever goes wrong it just keeps going wrong and getting more and more wrong, and such desperate situations and further, and it gets more and more manic. If you've seen like the Safdie's other films, Uncut Gems, it had very much that feeling for me, and yeah, just a brilliant film. It's set in the 50s, but it's got a 80s soundtrack which you think wouldn't work, but by God, it does. The music in it was fantastic. Yeah, very good film, and just one that's resonating with me now. Definitely a film I should go back. If you don't think you'll like a ping pong film, because I didn't think I would, and I think that's what put it off for me. Give it a watch, because it's so much more than that. It's this character study of this arsehole who's just getting deeper and deeper in the mire, and you can't help but feel, well, that's what you deserve, sunshine. Yeah, very good film, and I can see why it was a lot of people's favourite film of last year, because I'd say it's now top 3 for me 2025 films. Yeah, Marty Supreme. Next up, the Medusa Touch from 1978 with directed by Jack Gold, starring Richard Burton, Lee Remick, Lino Ventura, Harry Andrews. I like Harry Andrews. He's a policeman. He's a policeman in a lot of stuff. Gordon Jackson, Derek Jacobi, Norman Bird, who crops up in so many British films. Yeah, great cast and a decent film. Actually, my mate Stuart George, he messaged me with a picture of the Blu-ray of this a few weeks ago and said he was watching this, and I said at the time I'd never heard of it, but then looking through my DVD shelf, I had the DVD, didn't I? Honestly, sometimes I'm terrible. I think a few weeks ago, I say a few weeks, about 3 or 4 months ago, I had a really good score of some DVDs at a charity shop, and this was one of them. And because I'd picked up about 12, I'd forgotten about it. But yeah, good film. Very, very odd film. A mixture of genres. It's a horror stroke sci-fi stroke almost a disaster film as well. Yeah, if you like your disaster films, you might watch this and enjoy it. Richard Burton, he's his Shakespearean best in this. He brings Shakespeare to everything, doesn't he? He plays this guy with telekinesis who can wish bad things on people. From an early age, he discovered it. His nanny was horrible to him as a kid, and she met with an untimely death. His parents were not the best parents in the world, and there's a great scene where he makes them, I think it's a Dover, the White Cliffs of Dover, he makes their family car run over them and blow them off the cliffs. If you watch the film, watch that scene, because I recorded that, I rewound that 2 or 3 times, watching these couple fly off the cliff with the car. I know it don't sound funny, but just the way they did it was quite good. And he's trying to warn people that he's got this gift and like bad things are happening. So he goes to see Lee Remick, and she doesn't believe him, does she? Well, you wouldn't, would you? She's a psychologist, and she thinks it's paranoia and all that. And it's then things keep happening, and there becomes a police investigation. It's not until Lee Remick is shown something by Richard Burton, his powers. He actually physically shows her what he's capable of. That she suddenly realises what's going on here, and this guy is almost like a supervillain. That's the sort of character he's done some quite terrible things, and he needs putting a stop to before he can pull off his final masterstroke of what he's planning on, and which is the end bit of it, which was an absolutely fantastic last act to this film. Really, really surprised with this film. I thought it was absolutely fabulous. I thought it was incredible. So yeah, cheers, Stuart, for a good recommendation there. Brilliant. Can't go wrong with a bit of Richard Burton. Right, to finish off the week, Madame Bovary, 1991, directed by Claude Chabrol, my third venture into this box set, starring Isabelle Huppert and Jean-Francois Palmer. And yeah, enjoyed this. Like I say, my third venture into this, and whilst of the 3 films I've seen so far, this is probably the one I enjoyed least. It was still pretty good. Madame Bovary, it's a classical tale, a tale that I wasn't aware of, to be honest. It's not the sort of book I'd read, and I believe there's about another 3 or 4 film adaptations to this, so I may have to look into that. I wouldn't mind seeing like the earlier, like the 40s, 50s editions, because I'm sure I might get more out of that than I did this. This is about Isabelle Huppert's character. She is the daughter of this, I wouldn't say over-rich family, but quite a wealthy family, and she's always trying to get married off by the father. One day he has an accident and breaks his legs, and sets out for the local doctor to played by Jean-Francois, and he resets his leg and sort of like match makes the 2 of them together, and they have a short courtship and they get married. The problem being that the doctor is a nice guy, but is dull as ditch water. Think Arsenal under George Graham. I mean, that's how boring he is, this guy. I'm set the Arsenal fan. Sorry about that. Not really. That's how boring this guy is. This guy is really boring, and she soon becomes very disillusioned with life and starts taking different lovers and leading this ulterior lifestyle, for which on his doctor's salary they can't afford. So she starts borrowing money and getting further and further into debt, and you then see the repercussions of the debt that she gets into and what happens then to her and her family through owing all this money and having bailiffs and stuff like that on the door. Yeah, good classic tale. Like I say, not the best film in this box set by any stretch of the imagination, but it's elevated by Isabelle Huppert. I could watch her in anything, to be honest. She, along with the likes of, for me, Marlene Dietrich and Betty Davis, Joan Crawford, she just elevates anything she's in, and she's so magnetic, and just the screen absolutely loves her. That I could just, if she did a film about taking the tops off Coke bottles, I'd probably watch it. That sort of effect she has on me. Yeah, very, very good actor. I might do a top 10 actresses list. I might think about doing that, actually. Actresses and actors. Yeah, that might be one for the future. But yeah, Madame Bovary, it's okay, and the Chabro box set keeps on giving. So that's it for the week. I feel I've rattled on a bit this week, so I'll edit it all together, but I apologise if it's a bit too long. All matron. Yeah, give me a like if you've liked what I've done today. Maybe think about subscribing, and I'll see you in the week. And oh yeah, don't forget, head over to gym, subscribe, and if you can be available next Saturday, all the better. Have a good rest of your weekend, and I'll catch you later. Goodbye.